UFC 250 has come to a close and we are now a day removed from the event, and it leaves us with the same question we are left with every single time a fight card is over. What happens next? I'll tell you what's going to happen next. I'm going to go through the entire fight card, telling you the next fights for the winners and the losers of every single fight on the card, starting with the main event, Amanda Nunes versus Felicia Spencer. Nunes completely dominated, but let's talk about what's next. Amanda Nunes said in her interview afterwards, she's going to take the rest of 2020 off. That gives us some time to build her a real contender at bantamweight, and I think I have just a remedy. My mind's been working overtime overnight. I feel as though we should do, and a lot of people were mentioning maybe Irene Aldana should be next. Or even on the UFC commentary desk, they were saying maybe Irene Aldana could be the next opponent for Amanda Nunes. Shut the fuck up. No number 5 ranked person deserves to get a title shot unless their name is Jose Aldo. We know how the UFC works. Fucking Jose Aldo. We'll get to that in a second. Even still, in my opinion, Irene Aldana has not earned a title shot. Holly Holm has not earned a title shot. Jermaine Durandamy has not earned a title shot. Aspen Ladd has not earned a title shot. Juliana Pena has not earned a title shot. We've got some work to do. I think we should do Irene Aldana versus Holly Holm real soon. Within the next few months, that would be ideal. Aspen Ladd is taking on Sarah McMahon at the end of this month of June, on 27th of June. Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier, that fight card. Aspen Ladd will be taking on Sarah McMahon. I feel as though we should do some kind of semi-finalist tournament. Aspen Ladd versus Sarah McMahon. The winner takes on the winner of Holly Holm versus Irene Aldana. The winner of that final bout will be the next title challenger for Amanda Nunes, and we'll sort out featherweight in the meantime. However, you know, let's give it some time. Amanda Nunes says she wants to take some time off and not fight again in 2020. I am all for that because we need to build her a contender, and that's exactly what we should do. Moving on to the loser of the bout, Felicia Spencer. I have no fucking idea. There's no female bantamweights. So, I don't know what she's going to do. Megan Anderson rematch? I don't know. Like, there's nothing really we can do. I feel like maybe a Megan Anderson rematch would be the only possible outcome because there's no one at women's featherweight, so maybe Felicia Spencer should just go away. I don't know, to be honest with you, because there's nothing for her to do at women's featherweight other than rematch against Megan Anderson, and that makes zero sense. So, I don't know what Felicia Spencer should do. That's the only one on this entire card that I'm pretty clueless about because she doesn't have a division to go back to. That's the problem here. In my opinion, maybe lose the muffin cake around the stomach area, go down to bantamweight, re-inject some life into that division, and take on Jermaine Durandamy. Both girls coming off losses? It sounds like an idea to me. Moving on down the card to the co-main event, Rafael Assunção versus Cody Garbrandt. The winner of this fight would not get a title shot. I'm sick of people saying that Garbrandt's going to leapfrog Aljamain Sterling. I don't think that should be the case. I feel as though Cody Garbrandt should be looking to take on Marlon Moraes next. Moraes is number 1 in the division right now. I don't know if anyone's forgotten that on the UFC commentary desk, but Marlon Moraes versus Cody Garbrandt should take place next, in my opinion. It's a great fight. I know Cody Garbrandt just moved to Mark Henry's gym, and Marlon Moraes has been there for a while now. He trains in and out of Mark Henry's gym, but he trains there a lot. Cody Garbrandt versus Marlon Moraes, hear me out, on the same card as Usman versus Gilbert Burns. We build a whole narrative about teammates becoming enemies. Perfect. Perfect card. Cody Garbrandt versus Marlon Moraes on the same card as Gilbert Burns versus Kamaru Usman. And for Rafael Assunção, I feel as though he should retire. He's had many chances to get the belt. This is a really bad KO loss that I don't feel like at bantamweight is something you can recover from. I mean, I doubted that Cody Garbrandt would recover from... I really doubted that Garbrandt would recover from his KO losses, and they were TKOs. Assunção got put out cold at bantamweight. That's a problem for me in terms of the future. He's an older guy. I feel as though he should retire. That's what's next for Rafael Assunção, but if he doesn't want to retire, he should wait and take on the loser of Pedro Munoz versus Frankie Edgar. Sounds good to me, but I think he should retire. Garbrandt should take on Marlon Moraes next to determine the next title shot after Aljamain Sterling. Talking of which, Aljamain Sterling versus Corey Sandhagen. You can't deny Aljamain Sterling a title shot anymore. It's impossible. You can't watch him go out there and do that to Corey Sandhagen and not just give him a title. Like, even give him a title for it, in my opinion. Like, I don't even think giving him a title shot can even mean anything at this point. Like, Aldo should not be getting a title shot against Piotr Jan. In my opinion, Aljamain Sterling should leapfrog Aldo, scoot him out of a title fight, and just take on Jan right away. They're not going to do that to Jose Aldo, because it's not Jose Aldo's fault, and that would be really punishing Aldo for nothing, really. Aljamain Sterling versus the winner of Aldo versus Jan. I don't think there's any other options. Aljamain Sterling deserves a title shot moving down the card. And for Corey Sandhagen as well, actually. I'll mention him. Bit of a bad performance from Corey Sandhagen. I feel like he was a little bit too comfortable and he didn't really respect the ground game of Aljamain Sterling too much. He paid that ultimately by getting annihilated in the first round. However, it's not over yet. He didn't take any damage. I know he went out cold, but it's not like he got KO'd like a Sun Sao or some of the other guys on the card. He can turn around and get back in there, and I feel like Corey Sandhagen should take on the winner of Pedro Munoz versus Frankie Edgar, because that way, if it's Frankie Edgar, we get the fight that we never got to see in January 25th, UFC Raleigh, Curtis Blades versus JDS. The co-main event was supposed to be Sandhagen versus Edgar. We can still get that fight. Corey Sandhagen versus the winner of Munoz versus Edgar sounds great to me, and then the winner of that one will look towards a title elimination bout again. Corey Sandhagen still at the top of the heap. Do not lose hope. Corey Sandhagen, get back in there versus the winner of Edgar versus Munoz, and Sterling deserves his title shot whenever he's ready, or whenever Jan and Aldo sort their shit out. Neil Magny versus Anthony Rocco Martin. Thought the fight could have gone either way. I rewatched it. I'm really not mad at the decision. I am mad that they scored it 30-27, but it was a close fight. I think it could have been a split decision to one of the guys. I don't think the unanimous decision 30-27s do justice to Anthony Rocco Martin. I feel like that's a little bit mean. However, they're both really good guys. I feel as though Anthony Rocco Martin should be looking to take on maybe Li Jingliang, another guy similarly ranked in the welterweight division, just outside the rankings, coming off one loss as well after a bit of a streak. Anthony Rocco Martin versus Li Jingliang makes sense to me. As we know, Rocco Martin is not afraid to go into enemy territory. He fought Ramazan Emeev in Russia. I'm sure he'll go to China to fight Li Jingliang. That would be amazing once this whole worldwide sneezing situation calms down. I'm sure we'll have access to China again. But Neil Magny should be looking to take on Jeff Neal, in my opinion. I think Neil Magny should be ranked after this, and when the rankings change on Tuesday, if I don't see Neil Magny ranked, there's a problem with our ranking system, because Neil Magny, in my opinion, is top 15. He should be looking to take on a guy like Jeff Neal. I think that would be ideal. The only other guy I could really see him taking on would be maybe Luque. Neil Magny versus Vicente Luque was supposed to happen at UFC Liverpool not too long ago. The fight we never got. Neil Magny versus Vicente Luque. I've completely changed my mind. I was going to pick Neil Magny versus Jeff Neal just because both of them have Neil in their name. I thought that would be a really cool fight. Battle of the Neils. You know, it'll be an amazing situation. But Neil Magny versus Vicente Luque is also a great fight. Two guys who need to put one more win together before looking for a jump up the rankings. Neil Magny versus Vicente Luque sounds good to me. Eddie Wineland lost to Sean O'Malley, but Sean O'Malley got the jump on him. Sean O'Malley, in my opinion, should be looking for a guy named Rob Font. Sean O'Malley expressed a lot of things that tells me exactly who he's looking to fight next. He says he needs a guy who's ready to go. That's Rob Font, because his gym has been ready to go. They produced Calvin Kattar for UFC 249. That gym is all systems go right now at New England Cartel. He needs an American-based fighter. That's Rob Font. He needs a guy who's reasonably an accessible jump up the rankings, because he's not going to get anyone in the top 5 right now. Rob Font sitting at the number 10 or 11 mark right now. Rob Font versus Sean O'Malley, I feel like, is the perfect fight to make. I also feel like it should be the main event of a fight night, because as much as people don't like O'Malley's ranking and his position on the card because of his ranking, you cannot deny that the guy is catching up to Darren Till in Instagram followers. Darren Till co-main evented MSG. I know rankings mean a lot to some people, but we did this with Conor McGregor, and it boosts their star power exponentially. Sean O'Malley versus Rob Font should be on the main card, and that way, even if Sean O'Malley loses, you've got a marketable Rob Font to deal with as well, and then you can work on rebuilding O'Malley down the line. But if you do him versus Rob Font, that's an amazing fight, and Rob Font can steal some of that thunder because he's very marketable as well, and he's a very entertaining fighter that likes to keep it standing. Sean O'Malley versus Rob Font is a perfect matchup, and Eddie Wineland, on the other hand, again, I think he should retire. I don't like these lower weight class guys getting completely flatlined like that. They shouldn't go back in the cage. They really shouldn't. He got completely flatlined at bantamweight. I don't like that. I feel as though Eddie Wineland should retire. I know a lot of people don't like to retire after a KO loss because they want to go out on top. But Eddie Wineland, think of your health. Think of the moustache. Like, I don't know how many more knocks it's going to take before that thing flies off your top lip, to be honest with you. Like, Eddie Wineland, retire, please, for all of us, because I don't want to see that anymore. An older guy getting beaten by the young up-and-comer, it's kind of a sign that times have changed. I don't see many guys in that division that Eddie Wineland could get a win against. I think he should retire, but Sean O'Malley versus Rob Font should be next. Moving on to the prelims. Let's speed this up. Alex Caceres, in my opinion, should be looking to take on one more opponent before a jump up the rankings at featherweight. I feel like that opponent could be Sean Woodson, newcomer to the UFC, won his debut against Kyle Bochniak impressively, looked amazing while doing so, a long, rangy striker that throws a lot of elaborate techniques. Remind you of anyone? Alex Caceres versus Sean Woodson is a perfect matchup. They mirror each other. I think it would be an amazing fight to add to the prelims of any pay-per-view or the main card of any fight night. Alex Caceres is back. Not a really impressive performance, but he got the job done over Chase Hooper. We didn't quite know how Chase Hooper was going to deal with a guy who knew how to throw his limbs. Chase Hooper was less than impressive. I don't know what's next for Chase Hooper. That's somewhere where I'm really worried about. I don't have bogeys in my nose, it's just itching me, okay? I keep going for it. You know, I'm just going to go off screen and get rid of it, because I need to continue with this video. There was nothing there. Why is it itching? Anyway, Chase Hooper. Oh yeah, needs a guy coming off a loss at featherweight. I can't think of a single one of them that would be in his bracket to fight next. So I feel like right now for Chase Hooper, he should be fighting no one. He's a young guy. He should completely go back to the drawing board. Take a long time off because he took a lot of damage in this fight. Take your time. Come back in a year. I feel like that's actually not bad advice for Chase Hooper because he's a very young guy, 20 years of age. If you can't drink yet legally in America, maybe you shouldn't be fighting yet. You know what I mean? Like, go back, have a year off, evolve your game, work on your stand-up a little bit, and then I'd like to see him brought back into the UFC's featherweight division. But for right now, Chase Hooper should not be fighting anyone. He needs to work on his game because he has some inherent holes that a lot of guys up those rankings are really going to expose. And if Alex Caceres can land on you, guys in the top 15 and top 25 are going to KO you in those situations. Chase Hooper needs to go home, practice a little bit, come back after rear. But Alex Caceres straight in there with Sean Woodson. Let's get things going. Moving on. Ian Heinisch versus Gerald Meerschaert. Great fight. Ian Heinisch gets a KO in the first round, meaning that I can turn him around real quickly here to fight on one of these Fight Island cards, which I'm sure he would agree with. We've got a situation at middleweight right now where Uriah Hall needs an opponent, Jacare needs an opponent and is ready to go, Chris Weidman needs an opponent and is ready to go, Hermansson just signed to fight Kelvin Gastelum, and the winner of Marvin Vettori versus Carl Roberson needs an opponent. I feel as though, seeing as Ian Heinisch just snapped a loss streak, he should fight a guy ranked below him rather than getting one of these big names. I think Uriah Hall, Jacare and Weidman are going to figure things out amongst each other. Plus, Omari Akhmedov is in the rankings as well, and he's a little bit more deserving of those bigger names. Not to mention, he beat Ian Heinisch in Ian Heinisch's last fight, but Ian Heinisch bounced back. He stopped his loss streak. Now I want him to take on the winner of Carl Roberson versus Marvin Vettori on a quick turnaround in 3 months on Fight Island. Sounds amazing to me. Ian Heinisch versus the winner of Roberson versus Vettori. And for Meerschaert, older guy, really bad KO. He's still going to be able to do big things in the division. I just feel as though maybe Gerald Meerschaert versus Anthony Hernandez. Maybe Gerald Meerschaert versus Tom Breeze. Either one of those works for me. Take some time off, Gerald. We'll get you back in there real soon. Another guy that got TKO'd was Tom Breeze. Maybe their schedules will sync up quite well because they're both coming off TKO losses. Both of them should take some time off. Gerald Meerschaert versus Tom Breeze sounds amazing to me. Or Gerald Meerschaert versus Darren Stewart, another guy coming off a loss. Anything works, to be honest, with Gerald Meerschaert. Any middleweight coming off a loss will do. We'll see who wants to take it because Gerald Meerschaert is no easy customer and Ian Heinisch destroyed him. So Heinisch versus the winner of Roberson Vettori and Meerschaert versus Darren Stewart or Tom Breeze. Moving on, Cody Stamann versus Brian Kelleher. In my opinion, should have been the prelims headliner. I think this is an amazing fight. Cody Stamann showed us what he's made of. He's really as good as we thought he was. Brian Kelleher not quite there with these elite guys in the division, although he did give it everything he had, and I thought he maybe could have edged that third round. He was doing good as the fight went on. Cody Stamann got his hand raised. I feel as though Cody Stamann versus John Dodson would be the next fight to make. There are two guys coming off wins that are American-bound fighters in the rankings right now, outside of the top 10 or number 10, and those are Rob Font and John Dodson. I've just given Rob Font to Sean O'Malley. John Dodson versus Cody Stamann could be next, and I think it's an interesting matchup. Cody Stamann versus John Dodson, and Brian Kelleher needs a featherweight coming off a loss. I don't want to do Chase Hooper versus Brian Kelleher, but no, he needs a bantamweight. Sorry, this fight took place at featherweight, but he needs a bantamweight because they took this one at short notice. They didn't want to cut any weight. So Brian Kelleher needs a bantamweight coming off a loss. Nathaniel Wood, top-ranked bantamweight. If you get a win over him, you're right back in the mix to jump back into those rankings. Nathaniel Wood versus Brian Kelleher sounds great to me. Kelleher's going to need some time off because he's taken a lot of damage in his last 2 fights. Nathaniel Wood got TKO'd in his last fight, so he's going to want a little bit of time off as well. Nathaniel Wood versus Brian Kelleher makes sense to me. A battle for relevancy at bantamweight sounds great. Brian Kelleher versus Nathaniel Wood. Cody Stamann versus John Dodson. Again, Charles Byrd versus Magny Pitolo. Charles Byrd is 10-7. That's too many losses. Time to go. You lost to a welterweight. It's not enough that you were losing to middleweights. You wanted to do it against someone from a lower division as well. After gassing out after 6 minutes. Charles Byrd is not UFC material. Cut him from the UFC. His next fight should be with a Bellator negotiation room. Magny Pitolo, however, I feel like should return to the welterweight division and could take on a guy like Diego Lima, who's coming off a few wins at welterweight right now. Could also look to take on a guy called Daniel Rodriguez, who's looking for a really quick turnaround on Fight Island because he wants to make quick money. Daniel Rodriguez is not picky for an opponent right now. He says he'll take on anyone coming off a win at welterweight. How about a middleweight coming off a win that's actually a welterweight? That's pretty impressive. Magny Pitolo versus Daniel Rodriguez sounds like an amazing fight to me. I'm sure it'll be a scrap. Both guys come to brawl. Magny Pitolo versus Daniel Rodriguez. Moving on to the early prelims. I need to stop sitting on my foot. It's gone to sleep. Oh, God, this is a messy video. Jussier Formiga versus Alex Perez. Alex Perez gets it done by leg kicks. Jussier Formiga, for me, is in a pretty tricky situation right now. He needs someone coming off a loss. In my opinion, he should wait to see how the Benavidez versus Figueiredo title fight goes, because if Figueiredo loses, Formiga has a win over him. I'm not saying that Figueiredo is going to lose to Benavidez. I think he's going to beat him even more impressively than the first time. However, Benavidez could win. I understand how MMA works. If Jussier Formiga just sits out on the sidelines for a bit, sees how that title fight goes, and then looks on, sees if Divas and Figueiredo might lose, and then maybe tries to get a rematch with him because he beat him before, that would be understandable. But for Alex Perez, he's going to jump up those rankings. He has some options here. And he didn't call out anyone, which I was surprised by because he had an opportunity to steal the show. He's going to rocket up the rankings right now. He just beat Jussier Formiga by first round TKO. Someone else who just beat Jussier Formiga was Brandon Moreno, who needs an opponent for a title elimination bout. Alex Perez versus Brandon Moreno next for a title elimination shot to decide the next title fight after the winner of Figueiredo versus Benavidez. Sounds like a plan to me. It really does. Alex Perez versus Brandon Moreno sounds good, and if Brandon Moreno wants to take on Alejandro Pantoja in a rematch because Pantoja beat him before, and now Moreno wants to maybe get that loss off of his record before he gets a title shot, they could also do that title elimination bout, in which case Alex Perez should be looking to take on Kai Kara France. Anything works. One of those two opponents for Alex Perez, and Jussier Formiga, of course. See if Figueiredo loses, and that's your shot back into the top of the division. Alonzo Menifield versus Devin Clark. The accumulator fuckery of the card. Alonzo Menifield loses to Devin Clark. Less than impressive performance, and to be honest with you, I'm going to come out of left field here. I think Menifield's next opponent should be Cutelaba. He's an old guy, is Alonzo Menifield. He's 32, soon to be 33. He's not got much time left. If we're going to get him in the division, we've got to do it soon. I feel as though maybe he should look to take on Ion Cutelaba, but if he doesn't want to do that, Alonzo Menifield versus Ed Herman was a fight that was signed for UFC Portland not too long ago. They can rebook that one. I'm sure Ed Herman would be down if he was down the first time, especially after seeing Alonzo Menifield's performance against Devin Clark. I'm sure Ed Herman would be looking for that fight. Alonzo Menifield versus Ed Herman, the fight that was supposed to happen. Let's rebook it at the end of the year. And Devin Clark should look to take on Daton Young. Another light heavyweight on a 2-fight win streak right now. 2-fight finish streak as well as Daton Young. Devin Clark is a bit of a gatekeeper on a 2-fight win streak as well. It makes sense. Does Daton Young have what it takes to break into the rankings? And can he beat a guy in Devin Clark who is the real gatekeeper of light heavyweight? Let's find out, I feel. And in the last fight of the card, Evan Dunham versus Herbert Burns. Weird situation because it's at catchweight, but I'm going to assume them to their natural divisions. Herbert Burns has a win over Nate Landwehr at featherweight, which means he's very highly ranked. I feel as though Herbert Burns could maybe look to take on... If Herbert Burns took on Kron Gracie, I'd be genuinely interested by the jiu-jitsu. I know Kron Gracie has a inherent advantage over Herbert Burns, but Herbert Burns' MMA jiu-jitsu is very calm. He's very calm in MMA, which is something that a lot of these jiu-jitsu guys have a lot of trouble transitioning with, because they don't like the firefight. They're used to everything not being full contact. They like to think about things and stay patient on bottom. You can't do that with a guy raining down shots. I feel like Herbert Burns would be a good matchup for Kron Gracie. I would put it on the main card of any fight night. I would put it on the prelims of any pay-per-view. Sounds good to me. Herbert Burns versus Kron Gracie. And if Kron Gracie wants to take on a guy coming off a loss, which is understandable, Herbert Burns should then look to take on the winner of Charles Jourdain versus Andre Fili. If it's Andre Fili, maybe Andre Fili wins against Charles Jourdain. Herbert Burns versus Andre Fili happens next. Sounds good to me. And for Evan Dunham, retire. There's a lot of retirement fights on this card. Evan Dunham should go as well. He's been around long enough. He's taken his damage. He just got schooled in the first round by a guy in Herbert Burns, who's the up-and-comer, the new breed on the block. At a catch weight as well. Herbert Burns is from a lower weight class. I feel as though Evan Dunham should retire. But if not, do Evan Dunham versus Darren Elkins, and hopefully one of them doesn't die and one of them gets to go off on a win and retire coming off a win. Who knows? That's the entire card match made. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Click that button there. That one there. It says subscribe on it, so click it. And then goodbye. See you later.